Unknown album memory. When I moved into the new place, a one-bedroom rental on the edge of a quiet town, I wasn't expecting much beyond cracked tiles and old paint. The landlord was the silent type. Just handed me the keys, muttered something about the water pressure, and left. I started unpacking that same night. Nothing fancy, just clothes, some books, kitchen stuff, and a few boxes I hadn't opened since college. The built-in shelves by the window were dusty but solid. I figured I'd use them for books, or maybe a few plants if I got ambitious. That's when I found the album. It was tucked behind a loose plank on the bottom shelf. The cover was dark blue, almost black, with no label. Old, but not ancient. The kind of thing you'd find at a flea market for $3. I opened it without thinking. The first photo hit me like a slap. It was me. Or at least a kid who looked so much like me at age 5 that I literally said, "What the hell?" out loud. Same crooked smile, same scar on the chin. I got that from falling off my bike in kindergarten. But the background wasn't familiar. It looked like a different living room. I flipped the page. More photos. The same boy, a little older. Maybe 7? Holding a baseball glove. The same glove I kept in my parents' garage for years. But again, the house behind him wasn't one I recognized. The furniture was off, too modern, too clean. I kept going. Birthday photos, Halloween, a school play. All of them weirdly close to memories I had. I mean, freakishly close. Same Spider-Man costume. Same 9-shaped candle on the cake. But there was always something off. The parents in the pictures weren't mine. They looked generic, like stock photo versions of a mom and dad. Always smiling, always standing the same way. And then I reached the last page. It was a picture of me. Now. Or at least, it looked like me last week. I was lying on a mattress in a room with beige walls and no posters, wearing the same navy hoodie I had thrown on when I first toured the apartment. The angle was weird, taken from above, like someone had been standing at the foot of the bed. I slammed the album shut. I sat there for a long time, breathing hard, checking the locks, checking the windows. Everything was secure. I told myself it had to be a prank. Someone found pictures of me online. Deep fakes, Photoshop, whatever. But that last photo, that exact moment, that wasn't anywhere online. And the scar. In every photo, the boy, the teen, the adult, I had the same scar on the chin. Faint, but visible. And it was always angled the same way. 2 nights later, I woke up to a faint click, like a camera shutter. No one was there. I checked my phone. No new photos. But the album was on my kitchen table. Open to a new page. It was blank. Would you turn the page? Garage voice tape. It started with the sputter of a Honda CB750 that hadn't run since Dad stopped riding it in the late 90s. I'd been meaning to fix it up for months, but you know how that goes. One thing leads to another, and next thing you know, it's collecting dust under a tarp. That night, I finally made time. Dad was out at a poker game, and I figured I'd have the garage to myself. I brought down a toolbox, some fresh plugs, and a can of carb cleaner. The air in there always smelled like old rubber and motor oil. But that night, it had an extra bite. Like burnt hair, maybe. Melted plastic. The cassette deck caught my eye while I was rummaging for a 10mm wrench. It was this beat-up silver box sitting on a high shelf, half covered in a rag. One of those combo radio recorder types with clunky buttons and a fake wood panel. I remember playing Beastie Boys tapes on it when I was 10. On a whim, I hit play, and it whirred to life. What came out wasn't music. It was voices. Specifically, my family's voices. My mom laughing. My dad asking if someone fed the dog. My own voice, younger, saying something about a flashlight. I froze. It wasn't the fact that we were on tape. That part was plausible, I guess. Maybe someone had recorded a Christmas morning or something. But it was what came next that turned my stomach. Dad whispering, "Don't let him go near the freezer." Then silence. A click. End of tape. The thing is, we never had a freezer in the garage. Not when I was a kid, not ever. Just the fridge with the busted ice maker. I stopped working on the bike. I rewound the tape and played it again. Same thing. Same soft laugh. Same warning. When Dad came home around midnight, I was still sitting on the workbench, staring at the cassette player. He saw my face and said, "You okay?" "I found a tape," I told him. "It's got us on it. From I don't know when." His whole body tensed. "What did it say?" he asked. "That you didn't want me near the freezer." He looked pale, sat down slowly, like his knees were giving out. "I never told anyone about that," he murmured. "Told anyone what?" He didn't answer. The next day, I checked every inch of the garage. No hidden freezer, no signs of anything being moved. But when I came back inside, there was a new tape in the player. Blank label. I pressed play. Dad's voice again. "I guess it's time. He's gonna find out, one way or another." He sounded tired, like he'd just finished something heavy. Then a scraping noise. Then whispers. Not words. Just tones. Like wind pushing through broken teeth. I looked up, and Dad was standing at the door. "You weren't supposed to hear that yet," he said. "What is this?" He didn't speak. Just walked to the bike, pulled back the tarp, and opened the seat compartment. Inside was a key. Old rusted, tagged with a plastic label that read, "Chest." "There's more in the attic," he said, "but only if you really want to know." I haven't gone up there yet. Not because I'm scared, but because, for the past 3 nights, the cassette deck's been recording on its own. No tape inside, no power, just a red light blinking. You ever hear something that wasn't meant for you? Housewarming letters. I moved in on a Thursday. Not that it matters, but I remember because it rained just enough to soak the mattress I forgot to cover, and I spent the first night sleeping on the floor. New place, new start, right? It was a 2-bedroom rental house on a quiet street. Not too old, not too new. The kind of place where the windows stick a little and the light switches are installed slightly off-center. But it had charm, and apparently it had mail. When I came back from the hardware store that first afternoon, there was a white envelope tucked under the front doormat. No name, no stamp. Just, "Congratulations on your new home," written in neat cursive. Inside was a single slip of paper. "I've heard good things," from the previous tenant. I thought it was sweet, maybe a neighbor trying to be friendly. I looked around, half expecting someone to wave from a porch, but the street was empty. I forgot about it until the next day. Another envelope. This time taped to the mailbox. "Don't run the kitchen faucet at 2 a.m. Just trust me." Okay. Weird. But maybe it was one of those local quirks, old pipes, or something that rattled the walls. I didn't think too hard about it. Then came Saturday morning. Envelope number 3 was slid under my door. No greeting this time. Just, "The 3rd floorboard in the hallway creaks for a reason. Best not to step on it after midnight." I stood there, the paper in my hand, staring down at the floorboard in question. I'd stepped on it twice that night. Once coming back from the bathroom, once to grab a snack. I hadn't told anyone. By Sunday, I was checking for envelopes before I even made coffee. Sure enough, one was waiting. This time in the fridge. Don't ask me how. I hadn't gone shopping yet. Just some takeout containers and a bottle of sriracha. But there it was, folded neatly next to my leftover dumplings. Try not to unplug the fridge again. It likes to stay on. That was when I started feeling watched. Not in the creepy movie way, but in that weird internal way. Like when you're alone and suddenly remember an embarrassing thing you did in high school, and you feel eyes on you even though you know it's just guilt. That kind of watched. I set up a camera, a cheap, motion-activated thing I bought online. Pointed it at the front door. Nothing. No one. Just me, coming and going. I even left the house for a full afternoon just to see. Maybe someone was slipping in when I wasn't home. Still nothing. But the notes kept coming. Please, stop humming that tune. You dropped a spoon behind the stove. Don't pick it up. Leave the porch light on tonight. Some were helpful, some were unsettling, but all of them were accurate. I called the rental agency, asked them, half-jokingly, if the place came with a pen pal ghost. The woman on the line didn't laugh. She paused, then said, "You're not the first to ask that." Turns out, the last tenant left in a hurry. No forwarding address, no explanation. Just packed up and vanished. All they left behind was a mattress, some takeout containers, and, I guess, a habit of leaving notes. I haven't tried to write back. I don't know if that's possible, or smart. But every night now, before I go to bed, I check the house, lock the doors, close the blinds, and I read the newest envelope, wherever it happens to be. Last night said, "Thanks for listening. Tonight's hasn't arrived yet. Would you open it if it did?" The name in the letters. We were halfway through clearing out Grandma Elsie's house when I found the box. It was wedged deep in the back of her sewing room closet, behind old bolts of faded fabric, and a plastic bin full of broken buttons. I only noticed it because one of the fabric rolls fell and knocked the lid loose. It was just a shoebox, taped shut with brittle yellow masking tape, and it rattled faintly when I picked it up. Inside, letters. Dozens of them. Maybe more than 100. All handwritten. All addressed to the same person. Someone named Miles. No last name. Just Miles. I didn't recognize the name, and I'd never heard my grandmother mention it, but there was her handwriting on every envelope, her signature on every page. Some dated all the way back to the early 1960s. The first letter started simply, "Dear Miles, I'm still waiting. It's been 2 weeks and I haven't heard from you. I'm starting to wonder if something happened. Please let me know you're okay." I read the first 5 letters sitting on the floor, the box balanced on my knees. The tone shifted from gentle worry to something sharper, more desperate. By letter 10, she was begging him to come back, to answer, to show any sign he was still out there. My grandmother, the same woman who never remarried after Grandpa died, who volunteered at the church food pantry every Thursday and never missed a single birthday card, who taught me how to thread a needle and cook pot roast. She had written these aching, lonely letters to someone I had never even heard of. And then it got weirder. One letter, dated October 12th, 1989, ended with, "I saw a little boy at the park today. He had your eyes, your smile. I almost asked him his name, but I didn't want to scare his parents. If you ever did have a son, I hope you'd tell me. I hope you'd let me know if he was safe." That date is important, because I was born on October the 13th, 1989. It rattled me. Coincidence? Probably. But something in the tone of that letter, it made my chest tighten. I called my mom later that night, asked if she knew who Miles was. Silence, then a long sigh. "Just forget it," she said. "Your grandma was a complicated woman. Some things are better left alone." But of course, I didn't leave it alone. I stayed up late going through the letters. Some were written on old yellowed stationery, others on cheap lined notebook paper. There was one every year, sometimes 2 or 3. Never a return address, never a reply, but all of them ended the same way. "I'll keep looking. Love, Elsie." Then I found the last one. It wasn't sealed. It wasn't even folded, just sitting on top of the rest. The paper was crisp, like it had only just been written, but the date, scrawled in the corner, was the day before she collapsed in the kitchen and never woke up. "Dear Miles, this will be the last time I write. I can feel it. If you're still out there, if you ever were, please know that I forgive you. But I need to let go now. I have someone else to watch over. Someone who's just started to find his way. He doesn't know it yet, but he's special. I see it in him. Maybe that's you in him, or maybe it's just my old heart hoping. Either way, I'll keep him safe. With all my love, my full name, written in her handwriting." I stared at it for a long time. Not just the words, but the curve of each letter. The way she shaped the G in my name, the little loop at the end of the Y. That was her writing. Not forged, not copied, and definitely not a mistake. I never brought it up again with my family. The box is still with me, tucked in the back of my closet now. Some nights I think about burning the letters, but I never do because a part of me wonders, who is Miles? And why did she think he became me? The steps behind the house. It started with a rake. We just moved into the place a week ago. Quiet cul-de-sac, good schools, decent yard, and I was trying to clear out the overgrowth behind the house. It was one of those unclaimed strips between property lines, full of brambles and whatever the last owner couldn't be bothered to clean up. We bought the place from a foreclosure auction, so there wasn't anyone to ask about what might be back there. Then the rake clinked against something. At first, I thought it was a rock, but when I cleared the dirt away, I found the edge of a concrete step. Then another, and another. 7 in all, descending into nothing. The bottom led straight into soil, like someone had once started digging a basement and just gave up halfway. Weird, but not unheard of. I even laughed, called my wife over to look. She raised an eyebrow, said it gave her the creeps, and walked back inside without another word. I remember thinking she was being overly cautious, but something in her voice stuck with me. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because of the stairs, just moving stress, I guess. New house, old problems, leaky faucet, missing boxes, too much caffeine. Around 2 a.m., I got up for water. That's when I saw the shape out the back window. Someone was standing halfway down the buried staircase. They weren't moving, just standing there. I turned on the porch light. Nothing. When I went outside, there was no one. Just dew and the sound of crickets. I walked over to the staircase with a flashlight, half expecting to see a neighbor playing a prank. But there were no footprints. The dew was unbroken. I told myself it was a trick of the moonlight. Or maybe I was just exhausted. But the next night, it happened again. Same time. Same place. Only this time, the figure was 1 step lower. And I'm not proud to say it, but I didn't go outside. I just stood there frozen, counting the steps. I started checking the stairs every morning. The number kept changing. 7, then 6, then 5. By the 5th day, the steps had disappeared entirely, swallowed up by the earth, or maybe never there at all. The ground looked freshly turned, but there were no signs of disturbance. No smell, no holes, just a vague impression of something having been there and moved on. I would have thought I imagined the whole thing, if not for Scout. Our dog, a mutt with more curiosity than sense, started digging one morning exactly where the staircase had been. He was frantic, paws kicking up dirt with a purpose I didn't understand. Then he barked, once sharp and short, and stepped back. There was something metal in the ground. I pulled it out. An old wristwatch, caked in dirt but still ticking. Not a scratch on the face, even though it must have been buried for years. The leather band was cracked, but the hands moved smoothly. It belonged to the previous owner. He'd gone missing a year before we bought the house. Disappeared without a trace. No signs of foul play, no note, just vanished. We'd read the news article after closing. It was strange, but not strange enough to scare us off. We gave the watch to the police, they asked some questions, then said they'd look into it, but I could tell they weren't taking it seriously. Just another cold case with no leads. But here's the thing. 2 nights later, I saw a footprint in the grass. Just one. Right where the bottom of the stairs used to be. And the next morning, Scout wouldn't go near that part of the yard. He growled at empty air, then ran inside. I still check that spot every night. Not for stairs, for the next thing that might come out of the ground. Would you keep watching? Thursday calls. It started like this. Every Thursday night, around 9:47 p.m., my phone would ring. Just once a week. Just one ring. And always from an unknown number. The first time, I thought it was a scam. Maybe a spam call or a robocall that didn't kick in. I didn't answer. The second week, it happened again. Same number. Same exact time. The third Thursday, I picked up. Nothing. Just dead air. No breathing, no static, no hang-up click. Just pure, empty silence. It was almost worse than if someone had been there. I said hello twice and hung up. It kept happening. Every Thursday. Same time. Same number. I tried blocking it. Didn't work. It would come through anyway, like it was spoofing a new line each time. But with the same final digits, 4217. Always 4217. After the 5th week, I started recording them. I figured maybe I'd catch a weird background noise or some kind of interference. Maybe a clue. I use a third-party app, one of those voice recorders that runs while you talk. But there was never any voice. Nothing but silence. Until week 8. I played back the recording late that night while lying in bed. At first, it was just the same dead quiet. Then, faintly, I caught it. Something low and musical underneath. Barely audible, like a music box in another room. I boosted the volume. It got clearer. A slow, lullaby-like tune, delicate and old-fashioned. I didn't recognize it. So I uploaded a clip to a music recognition site. No hits. Not even close. But that only made me more curious. I dug around online, looking for anything about obscure nursery songs. And eventually on some deep-form thread about lost American folk tunes, I found a match. The melody was noted as Unpublished, Untitled Lullaby, 1979. FBI Evidence Archive. I froze. The thread linked to a grainy scan of a report, heavily redacted. The song had been part of an audio cassette recovered during an unsolved child abduction case from the late 70s. The victim, a girl named Lisa M., was never found. The cassette had been left on her bed. The only thing on it was that lullaby. No vocals, just the tune. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called the non-emergency line for the local precinct. I explained what had been happening. The dispatcher seemed polite but skeptical. She said someone would get back to me. No one did. Thursday came again. I let it ring, then opened the recorder. Same silence. Same soft music. Just a bit louder now. Almost as if it knew I was listening harder. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Not until I could figure out what was really going on. Instead, I bought an old tape player off eBay. The exact make and model listed in the evidence scan. I rigged it to record the next call through a line-in. Week 10, it worked. I burned the recording onto a blank cassette. Then, just to see what would happen, I left the tape in my mailbox. That's what the original case report had mentioned. The cassette had been mailed to the family anonymously. The next morning, the tape was gone. Nothing else. No note. No sign of tampering. Just gone. Thursday night, no call. Friday morning, I found something else. An envelope under my doormat. Inside, a photo. Black and white. Blurry, like a still from old CCTV footage. It showed a girl in pajamas, standing alone at a payphone. Her face turned slightly, as if hearing something behind her. Scrawled on the back, "Do you hear her now?" I'm not sure how much of what followed I imagined. The week after, I started dreaming about a melody. Always the same one. It would start faint, then swell, until I woke up gasping. My phone would buzz around the same time every night. No calls, no messages. Just phantom vibrations. I stopped answering the door. I unplugged my landline. Switched phones. Nothing changed. I finally talked to my neighbor, Mrs. Kellerman. She's lived on this block since the 60s. I asked if she knew anything about a girl named Lisa. Her face went still. She said, "That house isn't it your house? It used to belong to a couple who lost their daughters. She vanished walking home from school." No one had lived there long since. I asked if she remembered what year. She nodded slowly. 1979. I went home and sat on the floor. The lullaby started playing on its own. Not from the phone, from somewhere inside the walls. No speaker, no device. Just that tune. Soft and slow, and unmistakably familiar. The mother who forgot her son. It happened over Thanksgiving. I'd flown back to visit my parents in Ohio. Same house I'd grown up in. Nothing had changed. Same chipping paint on the porch rail. Same squeaky hinges on the storm door. Mom had even made my favorite casserole, the one with too many breadcrumbs. But something was off. From the moment I stepped inside, my mother didn't call me by my name. Not even once. She just said things like, "How was your flight, dear?" And, "You must be tired." At first, I thought she was just being formal, or maybe she'd picked up a new habit. But then she started hesitating, pausing before she spoke to me, like she was reaching for a name she didn't quite have. I caught her once, standing in the hallway, staring at a family photo. It was one of me from high school, smiling in a football jersey. She tilted her head like she didn't recognize it. That night, I asked her directly, "Mom, do you know who I am?" She blinked, smiled. "Of course, you're my darling boy." Not my name, not even close. I laughed it off, said she must be tired, but the pit in my stomach wouldn't leave. My dad noticed it too. Later, after she'd gone to bed, I cornered him in the kitchen, told him what happened. He didn't look surprised. "She's been like this since the accident," he said quietly. I frowned. "What accident?" He gave me a look, half puzzled, half cautious. "The car crash, 3 years ago. Don't you remember?" But I didn't. I had no memory of any accident. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept racing. What did he mean? What crash? Why couldn't I remember? The next day, I started digging. Old newspapers, local archives. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. Maybe some story about a crash near our neighborhood. Then I found it. It was an article from October 3 years ago. Headline, "Young man disappears after collision on Route 16. The photo was grainy but clear enough. It was me. Same face, same age. The name printed below was identical to mine. Even the middle name. He'd gone missing after hitting a tree late at night. The car was found abandoned. No body. Just blood on the airbag and shattered glass. But here I was. I ran back to the house. Demanded answers. My dad looked shaken. "That was you," he said. "But you came back. Walked right through that door 2 weeks later. Said you were fine. We thought maybe you hit your head and forgot everything. But Mom, she never looked at you the same." I sat down, dizzy. The room felt off-kilter. I remembered none of it. None. I checked the basement, the attic, every old box I could find. I needed something solid. Proof I'd always been here. But what I found was worse. In a file drawer, tucked between tax documents, was a birth certificate. Same name. Same date of birth. But the mother's name listed was my mother's maiden name. It wasn't my document. It belonged to someone else. Someone who'd vanished in 2019. I stared at it, trying to make sense of the handwriting, the stamps, the official seal. Then I noticed something scribbled on the back, in my mother's script. He's still here, but not mine. Playground boy. It started with a rumor. One of those half-whispered stories parents tell each other outside the school gate while waiting for the final bell. You ever see a kid standing alone out there? Middle of the field? Doesn't move, just stands there. I heard it from Melissa first. Her son, Toby, is in the same class as my daughter, Ava. She said it casually, like she didn't want to admit it had bothered her. Just some kid, right? But no teachers ever see him. And he's never in the class photos. I laughed. A joke, I figured. Every school's got its ghost stories. But then Chris mentioned it too. And Nadine. Different days, same weird detail. A child standing dead center on the soccer field right after the 3 p.m. bell. Always facing the school, never speaking, never walking away. So I started watching. Not obsessively, just more aware. Pickup time came and I stood back from the crowd. Let Ava come to me instead. Scan the field each time. Nothing. Then one Thursday, I saw him. He was small, maybe 6 or 7, standing perfectly still at midfield. His clothes were out of style, not in a retro way, just old. 2 small sneakers, jeans that looked scratchy, and a striped shirt faded from decades of wash. His hair was neatly combed, and he was staring right at me. I blinked, startled, looked around to see if anyone else had noticed. Melissa was chatting with a teacher. Chris was buckling his twins into the car. No one else seemed to see the kid. When I looked back, he was gone. I didn't tell Ava, didn't want to spook her. But I asked some harmless questions over dinner. Hey, sweetie, do you ever see anyone on the field after school? Like, someone just standing around? She shook her head, mouth full of chicken nuggets. Nope, just kids running. Why? Just curious. That night, I barely slept. Not from fear, but from questions. The kid didn't feel like a ghost, not exactly. He felt misplaced, like a page from the wrong book. The next week, I asked the front office staff if there'd been any issues with trespassers. They looked at me blankly. We've got security cameras facing the field. If anyone was hanging around, we'd know. So I asked to see them. Why? I panicked a little. Made up some story about a suspicious man near the parking lot. They agreed, and I sat in the small, too-bright room with the grainy black and white feed pulled up. I watched footage from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. No kid. I leaned closer. Rewatched Thursday's tape. 3:01 p.m. My car pulled in. Ava ran out. Melissa was waving. And the field was empty. But I saw him. I knew. I had. After that, it got worse. Parents started acting odd. Quieter. Tighter-lipped. Chris, usually Mr. Loud and laughing, stopped talking at drop-off. Melissa looked tired. Distant. Everything okay? I asked. She nodded too fast. Just tired. Kids, you know. Then Nadine pulled me aside one afternoon. I have to tell you something. That boy, The one we saw? He looks like my brother. That threw me. Your brother? He went missing. 1982. He was 7. Disappeared from the school playground. They never found him. I didn't know what to say. She showed me a photo. A wrinkled, sepia-toned snapshot. Same striped shirt. Same combed hair. Are you sure? She nodded, eyes wet. It's him, but it can't be. We watched together the next day. Thursday, again. 3 p.m. And there he was. Same spot. Same stillness. But this time, Nadine stepped onto the field. I called out to stop her, but she kept walking. As she got closer, the boy turned his head, slowly, and looked directly at her. She stopped, then turned back. He said my name, she whispered, voice breaking. But his lips didn't move. He vanished right after. Later that night, I checked the cameras again. No boy. No Nadine walking onto the field. Just 30 seconds of static. Parents started pulling their kids, one by one. Rumors flew. About hauntings, about disappearances, about whispers heard on the field. I asked Ava again, "You really never saw anyone out there?" She looked at me for a long time. "I saw you talking to someone," she finally said, "but there was nobody there. I haven't gone back. Sometimes I dream about that boy, always in the middle of the field, always waiting. For someone, maybe for me." The stop clock. I found the clock while going through my grandfather's things. It was buried in the back of a drawer in his old writing desk, nestled beneath a stack of yellowed stationery and a broken fountain pen. The clock was small, round, with a faded brass frame and 2 thin, stiff hands, pointing to 2:47. It wasn't ticking. Hasn't for years, apparently. But it had that kind of presence, like it had been watching everything from the shadows, remembering things the rest of us forgot. I thought about tossing it, but something about the weight of it in my hand made me hesitate. Instead, I set it on the edge of my nightstand, next to my phone charger and a dog-eared paperback I'd been pretending to read for a month. The next morning, the clock was gone. I assumed I'd knocked it over during the night. Maybe it rolled under the bed or into the laundry basket. I gave it a half-hearted search and figured I'd find it eventually. I didn't. Not until 3 days later. It was back in the drawer. The same drawer. Same stack of paper. Same pen. Just sitting there like it had never moved. Still stopped at 2:47. I laughed a little. Shrugged. Moved it to a box with some other odds and ends I was planning to donate. Taped the box shut. Stacked it in the hallway. Next morning, the clock was back on my nightstand. Same time. No ticking. I started to feel observed, like the clock was keeping score. Not just of time, but of me, my routines, my moods, my failures. I asked my dad about it over lunch that Sunday. He looked up from his soup with a strange kind of stiffness. "That old thing?" "Yeah, I remember it. Used to sit in Grandpa's room, on his dresser. Stopped ticking the night Uncle Ray died." I blinked. "You never told me about an Uncle Ray." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I don't suppose I did. That was the end of that conversation. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. The room was too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses on your chest. I turned over and looked at the clock. 2:46 a.m. The hands hadn't moved. But something felt different. Office. I swear it was leaning forward slightly, like it was waiting. I stared at it, and at exactly 2:47, The minute hand jerked forward, just a tiny twitch, but enough. I gasped and sat up. The air in the room had gone cold, sharp like winter breath. I picked the clock up. My hands were trembling. On the back, carved into the tarnished metal, were 5 words. "I am still watching you." I dropped it. It didn't break. Just bounced once, landed face up, hands still fixed at 247. That morning I went straight to a nearby park and buried the damn thing beneath a tree. Deep, over a foot down, covered it with stones and dirt, and walked away without looking back. 2 days later, it was on my pillow. I started locking my door, then the windows. I even put a security cam in my room. Nothing ever showed up. No movement, no sound. But the clock kept returning. Always 247, always silent. Then I had the dream. A war zone, dirt and fire. My grandfather, younger, screaming for help, crawling through smoke, clutching something to his chest. A broken watch, ticking wildly. Behind him, figures, others, ghost-like, watching. He turns, sees me, and mouths, "One of them stayed." I woke drenched in sweat. The clock was on my chest. I finally called my dad again. He used to say, he told me slowly, that he came back, but not alone. That there were others who didn't make it, and he owed them something. I asked what happened to Uncle Ray. Silence. Then, "Ray was never born." That's what Grandpa told us. But he talked to him anyway. Said he was the one who kept time. That was the last time I called. Now, every night, 247 comes. I don't sleep. I don't turn my back on the clock. I don't know what happens if I do, but I think it's waiting to show me. Her account lives. It started with a notification. Your post has a new like. I hadn't posted anything. Not recently anyway. The last time I'd uploaded something to my profile was over 3 weeks ago. A blurry shot of my dinner that didn't even get more than 6 likes. But here it was. A new like from a name I hadn't seen in over 2 years. Her name. I clicked on it. My breath caught in my throat. Same profile picture. Same handle. The account had been inactive since the accident. I knew because I'd checked, obsessively, in the weeks after she passed. She died on a rainy night, the kind of night that makes you drive slower and think longer. She never made it home from a weekend trip. Her car had flipped, she was gone. Closed casket. But now her account showed activity. Not just the like on my photo. The followers count had gone up by 73 people in the last month. No new posts, no stories, just movement. Like someone breathing under a blanket. I stared at the screen for a full minute. Then I sent a DM. "Is this you?" No reply. Of course, I screenshotted it, sent it to a friend. Creepy, right? They responded with a shrug emoji and said, "Probably a hacker. Or maybe someone in her family using her old phone." But that didn't explain the stories. Because 3 days later, a story popped up. Her account. A 5-second video. No caption. Just the image of my bedroom taken from the corner near the ceiling. The angle looked impossible. I don't have a camera up there, but there I was, asleep on the bed, turned to the wall, the blanket barely covering my shoulder. I screamed. I tore my apartment apart. No cameras. I checked every device, every port, every reflective surface. Nothing. I reported the account. The platform replied in 2 hours. This account has already been memorialized and is not accessible by any user. I replied, "Then who posted the story?" No response, but the followers kept increasing. I stopped sleeping in my bed. I bought blackout curtains. I kept my phone in a drawer in the kitchen. And yet, every Thursday morning at 3:18 a.m., I'd get a ping. New story from her name. Always my room, always me, never moving, but slightly different. A different blanket, a different shirt. One time, my eyes were half open. I deactivated my account. That night, the lights flickered. The next morning, my phone turned off and unplugged. Vibrated violently at 3:18. It powered on by itself. There was a notification. You have a message from her name. My hands trembled as I opened it. There was no text, just an image. It was a photo of me, sitting in the kitchen, wearing what I had on that morning. Only I was looking directly at the camera and smiling. Last light on Highway 15. It started with an argument. Nothing unusual. Just the kind of low-grade fight that simmers between couples when they've been stuck in a car for too long. We were on Highway 15, headed back from my sister's place in New Mexico. The sun had dipped below the hills, casting everything in that twilight gold that makes even dusty road signs look romantic. We'd passed a rest stop about 20 minutes earlier, but I didn't take it. That was part of the argument. You could have just pulled over, Claire muttered. I tightened my grip on the wheel. You could have said something before we passed it. She huffed and turned toward the window. We didn't talk for a while. Just the sound of tires on asphalt, and the occasional rattle of loose change in the cup holder. Then the GPS chirped, recalculating. What? We didn't turn, I said, but it had. Somehow, somewhere, we'd veered off. The highway was gone. No more mile markers, no more signs. Just a narrow 2-lane road flanked by dense trees that hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. Claire sat up. Did you take an exit? No. Then where the hell are we? I didn't have an answer. After a few more minutes of driving in tense silence, we saw it. A flickering neon sign reading gas, open. The building looked abandoned, windows fogged over, paint peeling. But the pump lights were on, and we were nearly out of gas. I pulled in. The pump clicked on, without me swiping a card. I filled the tank while Claire went inside to find a bathroom. The store was empty, but the door had been unlocked. A bell jingled when she stepped through. When she came back, she looked pale. What's wrong? I asked. There was a radio on, she said. Just static at first, but then a voice came through. It said, "You're not alone." I blinked. That's creepy. That's not all. It said my name. We slept in the car that night, parked in the shadow of the gas station sign that buzzed like a fly trapped in a jar. I figured morning would come soon. We'd find our way back, but morning didn't come. The sky remained dark, not pitch black, but deep indigo, like a storm was always about to break. The clock on the dashboard said 12 a.m. My phone said the same. No signal. No updates. Claire started whispering apologies. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, she said again and again. Mean to what? I asked. She wouldn't look at me. Just kept staring out the window. The gas station looked the same. Same lights. Same flickering sign. I checked the pump. No readings, like we'd never used it. I turned the key in the ignition. The car started, but the GPS showed only one message. No route found. I drove, just to be doing something. We passed a house, a single-story thing with a porch swing swaying gently, though there was no wind. Inside, lights were on. I knocked. No answer. The windows were filled with framed pictures. Same couple, different outfits. In every photo, the man looked like me. Claire didn't come to the porch. She stayed in the car, arms crossed tight. I ran back. Did you see that? The guy in the photos, he looks like me. She flinched. Don't say that. Why not? She finally turned to me. Her eyes were wet. Because you're not the first. I felt something cold spread through my chest. What do you mean? She shook her head. I've been here before. Not this exact road, but here. Places like this. They find people who argue, people who won't stop. They feed on it. The radio buzzed again. A low voice, almost gentle. You're not alone. This time it said my name too. Claire looked at me, and her expression was full of something between guilt and fear. You don't remember the accident, do you? She asked. I stared at her. What accident? She didn't answer. The road kept going. No turns. No landmarks. Just asphalt stretching out endlessly under a sky that refused to change. After what felt like hours, or maybe days, we passed the same gas station again. Same flickering sign. Same dead pumps. Claire whispered, You have to forgive me. For what? She looked at me then. Really looked. For leaving you behind. I blinked. She was gone. No slam of the door. No footsteps. Just gone. The passenger seat was empty. The radio whispered again. This time it said, One more turn. I drove, and drove, and drove. Eventually, I stopped looking for exits. Eventually, I forgot what I was arguing about. Eventually, I stopped asking who I was trying to find. The rental agreement. The house was listed as a cozy 2-bedroom retreat, just outside of Portland. Photos looked decent, nothing fancy. White walls, old but clean-looking furniture, a little backyard. The price was low enough to make me a little suspicious, but I needed a place for a quick weekend break. And honestly, the reviews were all glowing. Self-check-in. Key in lockbox. Instructions inside. The message from the host had said. I arrived just after sunset, tired from the drive. Found the lockbox without issue. Inside, the key and a folded piece of paper. The note wasn't from the host. It was handwritten in thick black ink. Please return everything to its original place. All of it. That was it. No welcome, no smiley face. Just that line. I laughed a little. Thought it was just an odd way to remind guests to clean up. I tossed the note on the coffee table and started unpacking. The place smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something musty underneath. The living room was basic. A brown couch, 2 mismatched chairs, and a low wooden table. There was a TV, but the cable box was unplugged. I didn't bother. That first night, I was too tired to care about anything. Made some instant noodles, took a quick shower, and passed out on the couch while watching something on my laptop. I woke up at 3:12 a.m. Don't ask me how I remember the time exactly. I just do. I had the distinct feeling I wasn't alone. The room looked the same, mostly, but something was different. The green cushion on the couch was no longer in the middle. It was angled, resting against the left armrest. I stared at it. I hadn't moved it. I was sure of that. Was it like that before? Maybe. Probably. I stood, picked it up, and put it back in the center. Then, I went to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, and checked every room with my phone flashlight. Nothing. Still, I locked my bedroom door before going back to sleep. The next morning, everything seemed normal. Sunlight through the curtains, birds somewhere outside. I chalked the night up to being tired and maybe too much caffeine. But the note on the coffee table, it had moved. I'd left it folded. It was now flat, spread open. The ink had bled slightly around the letters like it had gotten wet. I hadn't spilled anything. I didn't like that. After breakfast, I took some photos of the place. Just wanted to have a reference for how things were, in case I needed to make a complaint. I made sure to get shots of the living room, especially the cushion. That night, I double-checked everything before bed. I even took a picture of the couch again. Around 2:30 a.m., I woke up. No noise. Just the same weird feeling. This time, I didn't even get out of bed. I checked my phone, opened the photos I'd taken. The cushion was different again, now leaning against the right armrest. No way I was imagining it. And then I saw it. In the reflection of the living room mirror, just beyond the couch. A figure. Standing. Not looking at the camera. Not blurry. Just there. He looked like me. Or at least similar build. Similar clothes. But something was wrong with the face. Off in a way I can't explain. Like it didn't belong to any real person. My heart was pounding. I turned on all the lights, searched the whole house. Nothing. No one. I didn't sleep again that night. By morning, I'd decided to leave early. I packed everything, but when I got to the front door, the key was gone. Gone. I checked the kitchen, the couch, under the table, the bathroom, even the fridge. And there it was, on the inside of the fridge door, taped. A photo of me, carrying my bag, standing on the front porch, waving. In the corner of the photo, someone else's hand, holding the camera. I left the bag, left everything, called a cab from the yard, never looked back. I still don't know who took that photo, or how they knew exactly when I'd be standing there. But I never got my deposit back, and I never found that green cushion again. Melissa's collection. Melissa moved into the yellow house 2 doors down on a Wednesday. I remember because the moving truck blocked my driveway, and I had to back out through the neighbor's yard. Not the best first impression, but she waved at me from her porch later that day, all smiles and apologies. We talked more the next week. She caught me while I was walking my dog and invited me over for tea. Said she loved meeting new people. Said she was into garage sales. Obsessed, actually. Claimed she'd been to every sale in the county. Had a knack for finding things that told a story, she said. I didn't think much of it at the time. Lots of people collect stuff. Some folks hoard salt shakers. Melissa liked old memories. Her house was full. Not messy, not dirty. Just packed. Every surface was covered with framed photos, porcelain figurines, trinkets, and dusty books. The shelves looked like they'd collapse under the weight of sentimentality. She noticed me looking around and laughed. I know, it's a lot, but everything here has history. I nodded politely. Then she pointed to a snow globe on the mantel. That one's from your old house on Walnut Street, right? You had it on your nightstand. I froze. How did you know I lived there? She sipped her tea like I'd asked what the weather was. We used to play in the backyard. Remember the swing you had? The red one that creaked? You always hated how it leaned to the left. My throat went dry. She was right. We had a red swing, and it did lean, but I didn't remember ever knowing her back then. I would have remembered someone like Melissa. I tried to laugh it off. You must be thinking of someone else. She tilted her head. Maybe, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. I stayed for another 15 minutes, mostly listening as she pointed out various items. A lamp she found at a church sale. A locket from someone's attic. A stuffed bear that looked too familiar. Wait, I said, walking over. That looks like mine. I had one just like it when I was a kid. Melissa beamed. Mr. Buttons. You named him that because of the missing eye. I didn't respond. My mom had thrown Mr. Buttons out after a mold scare. No one else knew that. I find things that matter, she said softly. Things that carry a piece of someone. I like to keep them close. I excused myself not long after. Claimed I had work. She didn't stop me. That night I couldn't sleep. I pulled out old photo albums, trying to remember her. Nothing. Not a single birthday party, school event, nothing. But I kept seeing that bear, and the snow globe, and my grandfather's watch. How had I missed that? It was sitting on her bookshelf. I recognized the scratch near the dial. The next morning, Melissa dropped by, brought muffins. I thought we could go through more of my collection, she said. I have something special to show you. I didn't want to go, but I also didn't want to make things awkward. She was still new to the neighborhood. Maybe I was overreacting. Her living room looked more cluttered than before. Or maybe I was just seeing it differently now. She guided me to a wooden chest by the window, opened it slowly. Inside, an old yearbook. My high school. Class of 2007. I swallowed. Where did you get this? You left it behind, she said, along with so many other things. I opened the book, flipped past the football team, the clubs, the awkward formal photos. Then I saw her. Front row of the class photo. Hair in a tight braid. Smile wide and unnatural. You weren't there, I whispered. I would have remembered. She placed a hand on my shoulder. Memories change. I left, walked straight home, locked every door. The next day, the snow globe was on my porch, just sitting there, clean, untouched, like it had never left. I didn't bring it inside, but at night, I swear I could hear it shake, just a little. "3 days you don't remember. When I walked through the door, my daughter ran up to me like I'd been gone for a year, her arms around my waist, face pressed into my jacket. My wife was behind her, smiling wide, too wide. Welcome home, she said. Her voice was soft, like I was made of glass. I'd only been away for a 3-day work trip, or so I thought. Something felt off. I couldn't name it at first. The house smelled different, like lavender and lemons, not the usual mix of old books and whatever our dog had dragged in. The lights were dimmer than I remembered, or maybe the bulbs had changed. Still, I told myself to enjoy it. After all, when your wife and kid act like you're the hero of the century, why question it? We sat down for dinner. Lasagna, garlic bread, my favorite beer already open beside my plate. And then Lily, my daughter, asked it, "Daddy, do you remember what you said on the bridge?" I blinked. "What bridge?" She laughed like it was a game. You know, that bridge. My wife reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes said, "Stop." That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I tried to recall the trip, the hotel, the meetings, the drive back. But my mind was foggy, like I'd watched it all through someone else's eyes. I remembered packing, I remembered leaving, but nothing in between had any detail. The next morning I called work. "Hey, just checking in. Wanted to see if the client was happy." There was a pause on the other end. "I'm sorry," said the voice. New receptionist, I think. "But you haven't been in all week. We figured you were on leave." "No, I was on a business trip, out of state, with Mark and Dennis." "They've been in every day. You weren't with them." I hung up. Something was very wrong. I spent the next few hours digging. Checked my texts. Empty. No messages for 3 days. Credit card activity? One gas station charge, about 30 miles away. Nothing else. No hotel, no meals, no travel receipts. Even the car's GPS history stopped cold for 3 days. I didn't tell my wife. Not yet. I needed more. Later that night, I was in the garage, going through the dash cam footage. I'd never bothered with it before, Bought it mostly for insurance. But the files were there. 3 days worth of recordings. But they weren't what I expected. The footage showed me. My car. My face. But I wasn't driving like myself. I was taking side roads I didn't know. Talking to no one. Smiling when nothing was funny. At one point, I parked in front of a dark building and just stared. For hours. There was one frame, maybe a glitch, where my face didn't look like mine. Just slightly off. Like I'd been copied by someone who didn't know what a real smile looked like. That night, I confronted my wife. "Do you remember me leaving? For the trip?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, you packed your blue bag. Said you'd be gone a few days. Did I call? Text? Anything?" She looked down. "You sent one photo. You were by a river, but I couldn't tell where. Can I see it?" She pulled it up on her phone. Sure enough, there I was, standing on a bridge over dark water, expressionless. Behind me, fog so thick the trees looked like ghosts. "You never said where this was?" "Number. You just sent it with a heart emoji." I didn't remember taking that photo. I didn't remember the bridge, or the fog, or the expression on my own face. 2 nights later, Lily had a nightmare. Screamed until I ran to her room. She pointed at the closet. He was watching me. The other daddy. I tried to calm her down, told her it was just a dream. But when I tucked her in, I noticed something. Her nightlight, the one I'd installed last summer, was missing. In its place, an old lamp I hadn't seen in years. A model I swear we threw out after it sparked. I checked the trash bins the next morning. Inside the black bag, my blue travel bag, packed, unused. Underneath it, a burned phone. My phone. I opened my laptop and started going through my cloud backups. Tried to find anything, any clue. One folder, buried in the trash, had video files I didn't recognize. I clicked the first one. It started with music, organ music, then silence, then a pulpit, a funeral, mine. There was my face on a giant screen, friends speaking in past tense, my wife in black, Lily holding a flower. I scrubbed through the video in disbelief. At the end, as they lowered the casket, the camera turned slightly to someone standing alone under a tree, grinning, wearing my jacket, and then the video ended. I never showed it to anyone, but every night since, I wake up at 3:03 a.m., and someone has opened the closet door. No sound left. The morning it happened, I thought I just slept weird. No alarm. No birds outside. No dog shaking her collar in the kitchen. Just silence. Thick and absolute. I sat up in bed and immediately felt off balance. My ears weren't ringing. They weren't doing anything. I clapped once. Nothing. No sound. Not even the muffled echo you'd expect. Panic set in. I checked my phone. Full volume. Hit play on a video. The image moved. Mouths moved. Laughter. Applause. No sound. I shouted. Or tried to. I couldn't hear my own voice. At first I thought it was me. Some freak condition. Sudden hearing loss. But when I got outside, the whole world was muted. A garbage truck rolled past. The driver waved at me. I waved back, confused. His lips moved like he was saying something. Maybe good morning? Nothing. I drove to urgent care, half-dressed and shaking. The receptionist smiled, spoke. Her hands moved, her expression changed. But silence. I pointed at my ears, shook my head. She nodded like she understood, and handed me a clipboard. Even the pen on paper didn't make a sound. The doctor examined me, tapped my knees, shined lights in my eyes, mouthed what looked like, "Can you hear anything at all?" I shook my head. He nodded slowly. That's when I knew this wasn't just me. Nobody was reacting like something was wrong, because to them, this was normal. Somehow, I was the anomaly. Back home, I turned everything on. TV music, blender, nothing. My dog barked. I saw her bark. Nothing. That night, I cried. In total silence. Then, just past midnight, I heard it. Help me. Clear. Crisp. A woman's voice. Right in my left ear. I sat up so fast, I knocked over the lamp. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. "Help me," she whispered again. I turned. No one. I ran to the window. Nothing on the street. No one in the yard. "Please," the voice said. "They took mine. They're taking yours." I didn't sleep. The next day, I went online. Looked up every article I could find on mass hearing loss, silent neurological disorders, hysteria. Nothing fit. Then I found a thread, buried deep in a conspiracy forum. Too much sound, 6. They take it back. It sounded ridiculous, like a creepypasta someone wrote after too much whiskey. But the details were eerily close. People describing the silence, the moving mouths, the untouched noise, and then the whispers. One post caught my attention. You start by losing the world's sound. Then you hear the ones they couldn't contain. And finally, you become one. They called it the compression. Apparently, there was a theory. Some sounds, some voices aren't meant to be heard. They build up, like static in an old radio. And if you carry too many inside you, the world takes away your ability to make more. I didn't believe it, not really, until I found the recorder. An old handheld one, buried in my junk drawer. I'd used it for interviews years ago. On a whim, I hit play. Voices, mine, old ones, telling jokes, arguing, whispering. Then voices I didn't recognize. A man screaming, a woman sobbing, someone humming a lullaby. The recorder started to smoke. I dropped it. "They're inside," the woman's voice said again, "and you've kept them too long." The next morning I woke up to find writing on my bathroom mirror. Say nothing. I hadn't written it. I couldn't have. I had no marker, no pen, nothing that would leave that kind of mark. It looked burned in. And that day, I realized something worse. It wasn't that I couldn't hear the world anymore. It was that the world had stopped making sound. Completely. Except for her. "You're full now," she said that night. "You held too many voices." I begged, silently, wrote messages on paper, searched for help. No one responded. Not really. They saw me, but they didn't hear me. And now, sometimes when I sit alone, I can hear others. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Whispers like wind through leaves, all inside me, waiting. I think soon they'll speak through me, and someone else will wake up to no sound left. The third invitation. The envelope was cream-colored. No stamp, no return address. Just my name, handwritten in looping cursive. Inside was a single card. "You're invited. Saturday, 8 p.m., 17 Brookpine Lane." I didn't know anyone on Brookpine. I'd moved into the neighborhood 6 months ago, and most of my socializing had been polite nods over recycling bins. Still, the handwriting intrigued me. It looked familiar, though I couldn't say why. Saturday came, and curiosity beat caution. I put on something clean, brought a bottle of wine just in case, and walked the 5 blocks to Brookpine Lane. The house was old but well kept. Yellow siding, blue shutters, porch light glowing warm. I knocked once. The door opened almost immediately. The woman on the other side smiled like I was an old friend. "You came again." "Again?" I blinked. This is my first time. She tilted her head. "Of course it is. Come in." Inside, the house buzzed with conversation. Well-dressed guests milled about, drinks in hand. The music was low and jazzy, though I couldn't tell where it was coming from. No speakers in sight. I felt a tap on my shoulder. "Hey, good to see you again," a man in a burgundy sweater said. "Did you ever find that book you were talking about? The one about the lighthouse?" I smiled politely. "I think you've got me confused with someone else." He laughed like I was joking. Sure, playing the game again." The rest of the night passed in a blur of déjà vu. People greeted me with familiarity I didn't share. A woman winked and whispered, "Last time you disappeared so quickly." Another handed me a slice of cake and said, "Just like you liked it last time. Lemon and poppy seed." Back home, I tossed the invitation onto my desk and went to bed uneasy. The next morning, I opened my closet to grab a jacket. There were 2 more envelopes. Identical. Same handwriting. Same address. Same invite. But they were dated. 2 previous Saturdays. 2 weeks in a row. I didn't remember going, but I'd just come back from the 3rd. Inside the newest envelope was a card unlike the others. No time. No date. Just, "This is your last one. If you don't come, someone else will." I didn't know what that meant. I tried to forget it. But over the next few days, I started seeing the house at 17 Brookpine in my dreams. Always the same. The front porch, the yellow siding, the door swinging open to darkness. Then, on Friday night, I woke up to find my shoes by the front door. Muddy. My jacket draped over a kitchen chair. A wine bottle in the sink. Empty. No memory. No invitation this time. But I felt it. The pull. The need to go back. I tried to fight it. I really did. Locked my door. Hid my shoes. Stayed up with the lights on. Then I blinked. And it was Saturday. 7:45 p.m. I was dressed, standing in my hallway, keys in hand. I walked. This time, the house was silent. No music. No laughter. Just a single candle in the window. I knocked. The door opened by itself. The house was empty. No guests. No food. Just a table in the center of the living room with a single chair. And on the chair, an envelope. I opened it. "You're free now. Pass it on." There was another blank card and a pen. That night I left an envelope at someone else's door. No stamp, no return address. Just their name, handwritten in cursive. No pets allowed. The lease was clear. No pets. I even had to initial that line twice. The building had a strict policy. Probably because the walls were thin enough to hear someone yawn through them. But the rent was cheap, the view was decent, and I wasn't planning on getting a dog anytime soon. Which is why the barking made no sense. It started the second night I moved in. Around 2 a.m., a sharp, repeated yapping, somewhere between a terrier and a beagle. It wasn't loud exactly, but it was persistent, like clockwork. The next morning I asked the super about it. "Dog?" he said, squinting at me like I was trying to trick him. "You're the only tenant on the 3rd floor." "You sure?" It sounded like it was right next door. He gave a short laugh. "There is no next door. Your unit takes up the whole floor." I didn't press, but that night I stayed up and waited. 2:03 a.m. Barking. I walked around the apartment, pressing my ear to the walls. North wall, nothing. South wall, nothing. East wall. There it was, clear as day, not just barking now, but scratching. I tapped the wall. The sound stopped. Total silence. I tapped again. One bark, sharp and close. That wall separated my living room from what should have been nothing. The building's blueprints online showed a storage void between units. A dead space for pipes and wires. No access, no doors. But 3 nights later, while rearranging furniture, I noticed something. On the east wall behind a bookshelf bolted to the floor was an outline. A door frame. The seams were faint, painted over. But once you saw them, you couldn't unsee them. The paint didn't match. The baseboard trim curved awkwardly at the corner, and there was a small circular mark at eye level. A peephole. My skin went cold. I knocked. No answer. The next night, the barking didn't come at 2 a.m. It came at 1:45. Louder, closer, desperate. I couldn't sleep. I pulled the bookshelf away. Took an hour with a crowbar. Behind it, the faint lines were clearer than ever. Not just a door, a sealed door. Screwed shut from my side, painted and forgotten. Until now. I put my ear to the wall. "Stop it," a voice whispered. Low. Panicked. "You're making it worse." I stepped back. "Who's there?" No response, just panting. Heavy, canine panting. Then scratching. Like claws on the other side of plywood. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I told the super again. He looked tired. "You're not the first one to ask," he said. "But I swear, there's nothing there." "Then what's the barking? The door? The man's voice?" He didn't answer, just said, "It's best not to mess with it." I bought earplugs. They didn't help. The barking came through anyway. Now earlier each night, midnight, on Bir Otus, on. Then one night, it stopped. Silence. I slept deeply for the first time in weeks, until 4:17 a.m., a soft knock on the wall. Not frantic, not aggressive, measured, intentional. I got up, pressed my ear against the spot. A whisper. "He sleeps now. But if I leave, he howls. And they always come." I whispered back. "Who?" Silence, then. "I didn't mean to move in. I just needed quiet, but now he's mine. Or I'm his. It's hard to tell." I asked the only thing that came to mind. "Is it a dog?" Pause, then, "Not anymore." The scratching started again. I backed away. Went to bed. Slept with the lights on. In the morning, the door was open. Not fully. Just cracked. Like someone forgot to shut it all the way. Inside, shadows. A faint smell. Wet fur and rust. Something moved. A man stood there, leash in hand. His eyes were wide. Skin pale. Lips cracked like he hadn't spoken in years. "He gets lonely," he said. "When I sleep, he forgets I'm still here. So I have to stay close. Always." He turned, and I saw it. The leash didn't end in a collar. It ended in a wrist. A second hand gripped the leash tightly. Long gray fingers. Blackened nails. Attached to something crouched in the dark. I shut the door. Pushed the bookshelf back. Left the apartment that day. I never went back. but some nights, in new places, I still hear it. A bark, close, and a voice whispering, "No pets allowed." The account that watches you. It started with a notification. I hadn't opened the app in over a year, an old social media account I'd made in college. I deleted the app from my phone ages ago, but my email still got alerts. It's really, "You just posted a photo." I blinked. That was my handle. I was sure of it. I clicked the link. The page loaded slowly, like it didn't want to be seen. The post was a photo of me eating lunch at the Thai place near my office. The timestamp was from 30 minutes ago. I stared at it. Same shirt, same table, even the same drinks, a weird lime soda I'd ordered on a whim. I hadn't taken that photo. No one else had been with me. No tags, no caption. I changed the password immediately, set up two-factor authentication, logged out of every device. 2 hours later, another notification. "Really, you just posted a story." It was a video, grainy but unmistakable. I was on the train, leaning against the door, looking at my phone. And then I looked up, into the camera, like I knew it was there. I deleted the account, or tried to. The site gave me an error. Something went wrong. Try again later. The next morning I woke up to dozens of messages. Friends asking if I was okay, why I was posting such weird stuff. One sent a screenshot, a text post. "He thinks he's in control. Let's watch how long that lasts." I hadn't written that. I hadn't even been awake when it posted. I created a new account just to monitor the old one. It was still active, posting in real time. A photo of my breakfast. A short clip of me at my desk. One video, silent, of me talking to my coworker Sam. It even got the words right. I said, "You ever feel like your phone's listening to you?" And that exact phrase was the caption. But then it got weirder. Posts started appearing before things happened. A photo of me holding a coffee cup I hadn't bought yet. A video of me stepping into an elevator I hadn't reached. And once, a post that said, "I'm going to quit today." An hour later, I did. I hadn't planned to. But my boss said something that pushed me over the edge. I walked out, just like the post said I would. The comments were worse. "He did it, just like last time. Can you feel it thinning yet? Your choices shape both sides." I tried reaching out to the platform support. They said the account didn't exist. I showed them screenshots. They said the handle was available for registration. I tried registering it. Error. This username is already connected. To what? They wouldn't say. I set up alerts, changed devices, even stopped carrying a phone. But the posts kept coming. Someone, something was still watching. And then came the login screen. I booted up an old tablet I hadn't touched in years. It auto-launched the app. Logged in automatically. The screen didn't go to the homepage. It showed this. Another you has started connecting. Then, a message. Step aside. He remembers more. I felt cold, like the air itself had stopped moving. The tablet camera turned on. No prompt. Just that sudden green light. The screen went black. Then a reflection appeared. Mine, but not mine. Same face. Different eyes. Like someone else was using me as a costume. I smashed the tablet. It didn't help. The posts kept coming. Now more frequent. More detailed. He regrets not visiting her grave. Let's see if he remembers this time. I hadn't told anyone about my sister. I hadn't visited in years. Yesterday the final post appeared. A video, static. Then words, "He's almost ready. Your turn is ending." And in the comments, "Welcome observer, log begins now." I don't know who's watching anymore. I just know I'm starting to forget things. And he's starting to remember them all. To be you, I met him after rehearsal. Just a guy hanging around outside the theater, hands in his coat pockets, watching through the glass doors like he was waiting for someone. "Good performance," he said when I stepped out. "You're convincing." I thanked him, half expecting him to ask for money or directions. Instead, he asked something else. "Can I try being you?" I laughed, awkwardly. "What, like, in a scene?" He shook his head. "Not on stage, in life." I thought it was a prank, some student project or weird performance art. I played along, said, "Sure, why not?" He smiled. "Great, you won't regret it." I forgot about it the next day, until he posted on my feed. My old dusty Facebook account, one I hadn't touched in months, had a new update. A photo of my morning coffee mug, my kitchen, the caption, "Starting the day right." I didn't post that. Then came the message from my cousin. "Hey, great catching up yesterday. You seemed different, but in a good way." I hadn't seen her in over a year. I texted her. She insisted it was me. Same hoodie, same voice. Just off, somehow. More confident. At school, people treated me like I'd already spoken to them. My professor thanked me for turning in an assignment I hadn't finished. My director praised my monologue, one I hadn't even rehearsed yet. I started getting texts I didn't understand. People thanking me. People saying they finally understood me. A girl I'd been awkward around for months suddenly smiled and said, "I'm glad we finally talked things through." Only we hadn't. I checked my calendar. Appointments had been added. Calls were logged. Voice memos. My voice, but not my words. He was doing it. Living my life. And he was better at it. I confronted him outside the theater. Same spot. Same coat. He smiled. "You agreed," he said. "I didn't mean it." He shrugged, meaning slippery. "But look, I've improved things, haven't I?" I didn't answer. That night I got home to find my key didn't work. My roommate claimed I'd moved out days ago. My name was gone from the mailbox. I still had my phone, but notifications were drying up. Messages I sent got read, but not answered. My classmates didn't recognize me anymore. One even asked if I was the new guy. I stopped existing. Or rather, he existed in my place. Weeks passed. I tried calling the theater. They said auditions were closed. I showed up anyway. They let me sit in the audience. The show was called To Be You, and the lead actor was me. Or at least someone wearing me like a costume. He hit every note, every gesture, every nervous tick I used to hate about myself, but refined, controlled, applauded. I stayed in the back, night after night, watching someone else live what used to be mine. And then one night, he changed the ending. My lines were gone. He looked straight into the audience and said, "There's always someone watching, waiting, wishing they were more real." People clapped. He looked at me and winked. Now, I clean the lobby after shows. I tell people I used to study acting. They nod politely and walk past. Sometimes I hear my voice behind the curtain, laughing, rehearsing, perfecting. They say all the world's a stage, but they never said someone else might get your part, forever. when they start clapping. The first time I noticed, it was a Thursday night during a local production of The Tempest. Small theater, barely 100 seats. I'd gone alone, last-minute ticket, 5th row from the front. Everything was normal until the final act. Just as Prospero began his closing monologue, a group in the center section stood up. Maybe 6 or 7 of them. They clapped. Not softly, not hesitantly, but with this sharp, rhythmic precision. The thing is, the play wasn't over yet. Everyone else stayed seated. The actors on stage paused for a beat, clearly thrown off, but kept going. The applause continued for maybe 20 seconds, then stopped just as abruptly as it had started. The clappers sat back down like nothing had happened. At first, I figured it was just an overly enthusiastic drama club or something. Theater people can be weird. I shrugged it off. But then it happened again. The next week, different venue. This time, it was a community screening of an old black and white film. The kind where people show up in cardigans and debate cinematography during intermission. I was halfway through my popcorn when it started. That same group, same faces, same formation, stood up and applauded right in the middle of a quiet scene. No music cue, no credits rolling, just applause. Deliberate, rehearsed. I recognized them now, all of them. There was the man with the gray beard and narrow glasses, the woman with the thick braid and a floral scarf, a teenage boy with his hands folded behind his back before every clap, like he was waiting for a conductor's baton. Same expressions, serene, focused. I looked around. No one else seemed alarmed. After the show, I followed them. Just a few blocks. They walked in silence, then vanished into the subway station like fog. I didn't sleep well that night. Curiosity turned into obsession. I started going to more performances. Theater, film, even live poetry readings. I made a list of venues, marked dates. Every time I saw them, they did the same thing. Stand, clap, sit. Nothing changed, regardless of what was on stage. Sometimes they clapped at the beginning, sometimes in the middle, but always together. Always in sync. I tried taking photos, videos, but they never showed up clearly. Always blurred, faces turned away. Once, my phone froze completely until they left. One night, after a modern dance recital, I got brave, or stupid, and approached the man with the glasses. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "I've seen you at a few of these. You, really love live art, huh?" He looked at me like I was a misplaced object. Not hostile, just misfiled. "You assume this is art," he said quietly. "You assume we are the audience? Aren't you?" He smiled faintly. "Without us, there is no stage." Then he walked away. That should have been the end. But I couldn't stop. I needed to understand. I stopped going to shows for a week. Stayed home. Thought some distance might help. But then the dream started. Rows of empty seats. A spotlight on me. Applause that came from nowhere. And behind the lights, those faces. Always watching. I told a friend. Just one. She laughed it off at first until I showed her my notebook. Dozens of entries. Times. Venues. Sketches of their formation. She flipped through it like it was a crime dossier. Then she pointed something out. "You wrote this date twice. Look. Same clapping group at 2 events, same night, 2 different locations. That's not possible, right?" I didn't have an answer. The more I investigated, the less sense it made. Someone online suggested performance art, a secret collective. But their theory fell apart when I found an article from 1978, Small Town Theater Review, local paper. A footnote mentioned an unusual burst of applause during the second act, with a description that matched them exactly. Same man, same woman, same boy. I stopped reading after that. 2 nights ago, I was performing. A small part in a one-act play. Nothing major. I hadn't seen them for weeks. The moment I stepped on stage, I felt it. That weight. Like I was being examined. And sure enough, during a silent beat in the dialogue, they stood. Clapped. Everyone else looked confused. A couple chuckled. But me? I froze. Because in that moment, I understood. They weren't applauding the performance. They were confirming something. After the curtain call, I stayed in the dressing room until the place emptied out. When I finally came outside, one of them was waiting. The woman with the braid. She didn't speak at first, just watched me. Then she said, "You did well." I swallowed. "Who are you people?" She tilted her head. "We are the reason you exist." "What does that mean?" She stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You think you're real because you perform, but we watch. Therefore, you are." And then she walked into the dark. Last night, I dreamed again. This time, I was on stage alone. No script, no lights, just applause. I think it was meant to be reassuring, but it felt like a warning.